Good afternoon, everyone. Over the weekend, thousands of Missourians turned out for protests across the state. And we are very grateful that these protests were peaceful and nonviolent. And I want to thank all the protesters for peacefully pushing for change. We're glad to have our National Guard troops back home here in Missouri from D.C. also. I also want to thank all the local law enforcement officers, sheriffs, highway patrol, National Guard, and everyone who has been involved in keeping Missourians safe over the past couple of weeks. As a former law enforcement officer, I know how difficult this job can be, especially right now. These are challenging times for our state and our nation, but I want you to know that we support you and appreciate all that you do for the people of this state. With that, Colonel Olson is here today to give an update from the Highway Patrol. Colonel Olson.
Thank you, Governor Parson. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Incident to protest activity, which on some occasions has resulted in civil unrest in our state. The patrol has been providing assistance as needed throughout Missouri, but primarily in Kansas City, Jefferson City, and in the St. Louis area periodically since May 30th. The patrol's presence has been one of support and has come at the request of local police departments and local elected officials. We have been primarily focused on the interstates, ensuring traffic flow is uninterrupted, as well as policing in and around protest areas at the request of local law enforcement. Additionally, we have worked closely with the Missouri National Guard in assigning soldiers and allocating other resources to assist Missouri communities. We've experienced a wide range of response from citizens, including damage to patrol cars, rocks and other objects thrown at troopers, and in one instance, a trooper was fired upon. We are fortunate that none of our troopers have been seriously injured. We have been and remain available to assist our law enforcement partners around Missouri as the need occurs. Peaceful protests are how voices can be heard, and I encourage every protester to exercise their constitutional rights peacefully and lawfully. I hope each of you will watch out for your neighbors, their businesses, and the community. Criminals who loot and destroy our communities, our cities, and our towns will only leave behind a path of destruction for all of us to fix and clean up. Over the past weekend, we've seen protests move toward a more peaceful expression. I'd like to thank those members of the public who have reached out to our troopers during these protests. They're proud to serve and will protect and will continue doing so. Businesses, churches, civic groups, and individuals have delivered food and drinks, as well as cards and other expressions of thanks to our officers and to our troop headquarters as well. And I appreciate that very much. If it were practical, I'd contact all of you individually to express that, but since it's not, thank you. Every day, our troopers carry out our mission, which is guided by our 8 core values of integrity, responsibility, respect, resourcefulness, compassion, commitment, character, and professionalism. Troopers are here to help ensure a safe and peaceful environment for protesters while at the same time helping to safeguard lives and property. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel, and thank you for all the troops and what you've been doing over the last 2 weeks and what you do every day out there. Thank you very much for that. Last week, I traveled to different areas of the state to meet with local leaders, the clergy, and members of the African American community. On Thursday, we have another meeting scheduled with community leaders from Kansas City, St. Louis, Columbia, to listen, to learn, and better understand the needs. There is no room for racism in Missouri. And if we are truly to make a difference in our society, it's going to take all of us listening to one another and working together for a greater cause. In the midst of everything, we must also continue forward on the COVID-19 front. Phase 1 of our recovery plan expires on Monday, June the 15th, and we will be addressing that during Thursday's briefing. Just to recap, Phase 1 of our Show Me Strong recovery plan took effect on May the 4th. This was dependent on the 4 pillars of our recovery plan: testing, PPE, hospital capacity, and data. We have not only met these pillars, but exceeded them, and we continue to monitor our progress each and every day. During Phase 1, we have especially ramped up our focus on COVID-19 testing. And as I have said many times, testing will be the key to Missouri's full economic recovery. The more testing we do, the more knowledge and data we have, and the more confidence and reassurance we can give Missourians that it is okay to move forward. A couple of weeks ago, we announced a plan to rapidly increase our testing volume in Missouri. Since that time, we have made outstanding progress, well surpassing our overall goal of 7,500 tests per day. Today, Director Richardson is here to give you an update on the testing strategy across the state. Director?
Thank you, Governor, and good afternoon. I'm excited to have the chance to give you an update on Missouri's efforts and our progress on COVID-19 testing. As the Governor mentioned, testing is the first pillar of Missouri's Show Me Strong recovery plan and is the key to not only containing the coronavirus, but to entering a sound and sustainable economic recovery. Since the start of the pandemic, the state of Missouri has focused on expanding our testing capacity and access to the supplies necessary to increase the number of tests performed in the state. We have steadily increased our testing capacity in both Missouri-based and national laboratories, and we have not stopped pushing to ensure that Missourians have access to COVID-19 testing when needed. While we have work left to do, we have made tremendous progress. Weekly testing has increased more than 220% since April 20th, from approximately 16,000 test encounters that week to more than 53,000 encounters the week of May 25th. The Department of Health and Senior Services has expanded their testing guidance to medical providers to encourage broad-scale testing, including of asymptomatic people, if their clinical judgment indicates a test is warranted. This means that doctors should feel comfortable ordering COVID-19 tests in situations like when a patient has had known exposure to the virus or when they might need a test to return to work. But we did not stop there. In order to ensure that Missouri was using every bit of its available testing capacity and to ensure the safety of its citizens, Governor Parson challenged us not only to increase our testing capacity, but also to increase the use of that capacity, setting a goal of 7,500 tests per day. The state rose to that challenge. On the 19th of May, when Governor Parson issued his challenge, there were 5,555 PCR tests performed on that day. 1 week later, we had more than doubled that number. On May the 26th, more than 12,400 PCR tests were received by Missourians. And over the last 2 weeks, we have averaged more than 10,000 tests conducted per weekday. Unprecedented events have created unprecedented collaboration across our state departments. Cross-departmental teams have been working tirelessly to answer the governor's call. The teams that have led this effort included the Department of Health and Senior Services, the Office of Administration, the Department of Mental Health, the Department of Public Safety, Department of Corrections, Missouri Veterans Commission, the Department of Social Services, and the Department of Economic Development. Each team received logistics, planning, and staffing support from the Guardsmen and women of the Missouri National Guard. Not only did these teams reach their goals, they exceeded them, shattering the record for the most tests performed in a single day, and, Governor, your target. These efforts are about more than just numbers. They are focused on increasing testing for our most vulnerable, those in the state's care, and to expand testing access across our state. The state focused first on working to box in outbreaks at long-term care facilities, where in other states the mortality rates have been shockingly high. Missouri is supporting testing now in every staff member and of every resident of long-term care facilities that have had a single recent positive case. In the past 2 weeks, 108 facilities have performed facility-wide testing, totaling over 13,000 tests, which identified 79 staff and 180 residents with COVID-19 who were previously unidentified. This effort is saving lives by ensuring that outbreaks are being contained, that appropriate infection control measures are being used, and that positive staff and residents are properly quarantined. Second, the state has provided baseline sentinel testing for residents and staff in state facilities and in congregate care settings, totaling more than 12,500 tests. The Department of Mental Health has tested residents and staff at 14 facilities and identified 21 positive staff members who are now safely self-isolating away from vulnerable patients and preventing further infection. Similarly, the Missouri Veterans Commission tested 4 veterans' homes and identified 2 positive staff members, protecting our aging veterans who are in the state's care. The Department of Corrections has tested staff and inmates at 3 prisons, 2 of which, we're happy to report, had 0 positive cases. At the 3rd, the department identified 6 staff and 15 offenders who tested positive. The Department of Social Services has tested 21 facilities in our Youth Services Division and identified 6 positive staff and 18 youth. These baseline sentinel tests show us that our infection control measures are working, but they've also shown that testing will make those measures even more effective. They ensure that those who are in the state's care are safe from catching the virus and from staff members that come and go into these facilities, many of whom don't even know they could be putting clients at risk. Our third line of effort was community sampling, where COVID-19 tests were provided in 11 counties, totaling nearly 11,000 tests. Community testing increases access to testing while giving the public and our local health departments better information about the spread of the virus and the ability to predict potential hotspots. The good news is that out of that 11,000 tests conducted, only 107 of our citizens tested positive, and they are now safe quarantining. That means the total test positivity rate was approximately 1% across all those 11 jurisdictions. All of these lines of testing provide both critical information that will inevitably save lives, especially amongst our most vulnerable citizens. But this information should also give us a great deal of encouragement, because the overall cases were lower than we expected in many instances, and we are containing outbreaks where they might otherwise have been much more severe. And we should also be encouraged because more Missourians than ever have access to testing when they need it. As our capacity continues to grow, we will work to continue to increase that testing volume to protect our most vulnerable and to create a sustained economic recovery. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Todd. Let me also say today, just kind of finishing up here a little bit, there's been a lot of discussion over the weekend about defunding the police departments, about how to move forward in across the country and even in this state. A lot of things have been said about this. What happened in Minnesota was a tragedy, and the officer was charged with murder, which he very well should have been for what he did. Every day, though, police officers go out there, and the large majority of them, 99% plus, do the job they should be doing day in and day out. No more than a little over a year ago, 2 years ago, when I became governor, people were asking me for more police officers. St. Louis, Kansas City, where some of the highest crime rates were asking me to send the highway patrol in. They wanted more officers on the ground. Homicide rates were extremely high in the state of Missouri. And today, they're continuing to get higher while we're here talking of all these things. Doing away with police officers, law enforcement officers, is not an answer for anything. You want to change the way we do business? You want to make things better, we can all do better. I can do better as governor. Law enforcement, never hurts to learn, can do better also. All of us can. But the reality of it is, every day, whether it's the tornadoes that happened early on when I was governor, was the drowning incidents in Branson where people drowned. Law enforcement went in there and recovered those bodies. Whether it was tornadoes, when tornadoes hit the state, it was law enforcement that were the first ones on the streets, protecting people. And I can go on and on down that list. It's law enforcement's going to come when somebody calls 911. Nobody else is going to come. Those are the things that we need to remember sometimes about what it is when we talk about law enforcement. 38 law enforcement officers in the last 50 weeks have been killed in the line of duty, have been shot and died. I don't think there's anybody in this room could tell you what the color of their skin was when I asked that question of 38 people. What I can tell you of those 38 officers that lost their lives, they were public servants, and they did it for somebody else. And it goes all the way from a motorist assist to domestic violence to a bad drug deal, all across the country. They give the ultimate sacrifice. To try to blame all law enforcement for some bad actors in law enforcement is not the answer. It's not the answer. To get rid of the bad operators is the answer. To figure out how we can do better, we need to have that discussion. And we need to have that discussion on the ground level where it really affects the people that live in those environments that we're all talking about. But I'll also tell you this. For the discussions I will have with people, it will include education for young people. It will include how you get them an education. How do you give them the ability to get a job? Not more free stuff, not more government programs. How do you really change society? And for us to do that, that's what it'll take. It'll take governors sitting down with people in communities that maybe we don't always sit down with enough and try to figure out how do you do real changes. That's what will be important for all of us. But pit society against one another is not the answer. We all have a purpose for being here. And we all need to figure out what that purpose is from time to time and sit back and think about the things we do have. And a lot of people worry about all the things they don't have, and sometimes we need to be appreciative of the things that we do have. And we need to figure out solutions. And I firmly believe by us working together, really trying to make a difference, we can make changes. But we all have to work together to do that and try to keep one another safe. I will be attending the visitation of a retired police officer, David Dorn, tonight, and the funeral of DeKalb County Sheriff Andy Clark tomorrow, who both sacrificed their lives for other people, Both of them did. And no matter whether he was retired or whether he wasn't, he spent his time being a public servant. I'll be back on Thursday. We'll talk more about Phase 1 order that expires on Monday. Dr. Dixon will be here with economic development. He'll give some insight into how we're going to help with that on the recovery of that. In the meantime, I encourage everybody in this state to be safe, to use common sense, to be proactive, and to think about each other. Thank you, and God bless.